Okay, so today we're going to talk about the processes of socialization. You have been working on this kind of activities on T-Box recently, and we have talked about socialization in the book. But right now we're going to see the explanation. I will try to explain to you in an easy to comprehend way what socialization really is, how does it work, how it affects us, and how it helps us to develop as human beings. Because the socialization process is something basically essential for all of us in many of the stages of our life. First, when we talk about socialization, we are going to see what is socialization. It is the cultural process, if you see on the presentation, of learning to participate in group life. Okay, to participate in group life. Keep that in mind because that is going to be a key detail to remember about this process. It begins at birth and continues through our lifetime. And successful socialization enables people to fit into social groups. Let me stop right here for a moment. When we're talking about group life, we're talking about how you interact with other people, either your family, your group of friends, your classmates, teachers, all people at church, people at your sports team, and many other people that you can imagine. So over here, if we socialize, that means that we are able to interact with different people on different groups. This process begins at birth. And I want to make a clear example on how does it start. I guess I mentioned this before in classes, but if you remember, babies, when they are born, they cannot speak, obviously, right? What they do is that they start crying. Everything that they need, they communicate it to someone else by crying. If they are hungry, they cry. If they need a change of diaper, they cry. If they are angry, they cry. If they are sick, they cry. And that is the way they communicate. That is the way how they learn to interact with the environment. And family is the first social group in which they interact. But there is a point on the life of a baby in which they discover that crying is not an effective way to interact with the people around him. Because people may understand him, but they may not know exactly what they want or what they need at the moment. Therefore, they learn to speak. They try to listen to people. They listen to mom and dad talking, saying different words and everything. And all those words, they get processed by their mind and they keep them in store. And after that, they can use it on their own to communicate effectively. That's how they learn, for example, that if they want water, they should use the word water. If they want food, they should say that they are hungry. If they are scared, they should tell their mom and their dad why is the reason that they are scared. And therefore, they are developing and they learn to interact with mom and dad in this environment, or even brothers and sisters if they have some. So that is the process, and it continues through stages. When you're a baby, that's the process of socialization that you have. When you are a kid, a little kid, you start interacting in groups with in other ways. But we're going to see that in detail a little bit later. Successful socialization enables people to fit into social groups. Yeah, like for example, if you remember when we talk about culture, counterculture, subcultures, and all of those different kinds of cultures, we define that people in subcultures, they have different beliefs, traditions, ways probably of speaking, ways of dressing, and many other stuff. But why do they do it? Because they want to fit on a group, on a specific demographic, okay? Like for example, if I were talking to a doctor, I will talk in a different way to which I talk to one of my friends. The reason why is because probably the level of education is going to be a barrier in some of the cases. Probably the fact that we don't know each other so well, that is going to indicate how am I going to interact with people. And that happens. You will notice this, that when you meet a person for the first time, you probably don't interact as the same way that you interact with your best friend. The reason why is because your best friend knows you from a long time. He really knows or she really knows how you behave and who you really are. But a person that you just met sometimes we are like kind of aware of what they may think about us or how they are going to react if we show them certain parts of ourselves. That is socialization. That is we're thinking how to interact with a group. It may occur a high school freshman, for example, to adjust to a new situation. High school freshmen, we're talking about people that start their first year at school. This is going to be crucial for you at the university, and this is crucial for you to be prepared because there are some universities in which when you are a freshman, they make you go on a ritual, okay? On a ritual. And in that ritual, they will ask you to do something either silly, embarrassing, or something crazy for you to start your freshman year. And as much as you want to avoid it and as much you want to run away from that, they're going to obligate you to do it because that is the way in which you socialize with these people, in which you fit in that determined group at the university. For example, if I tell you an experience, well, not an experience of mine, but I had an uncle who told me, you know, when I was on my freshman year in high school, in the university, he lives in Canada from since many, many years ago. And he told me, the first day I went to the university, what they did to me is that they took all the freshmen that they were getting to the university and they cut all of our hair. So basically they shaved our heads. We were completely bald for the first year of the university, but that is the ritual. And that was something that you had to do if you wanted to be accepted by the people of the university. If graduating seniors, for example, are to look for employment, that's another example of socialization. Right now, you are still adolescents, you are still discovering yourself, what you like, what you want to do with your life later on when you become an adult. But there is a moment in your life, and let me make you spoilers of what is going to happen. Right now, you're a student, right? Your preoccupation is to study, is to get good grades, to pass to the next grade, etc. But when you get to adulthood and you get your first job, believe me, it's a jungle. It is a hassle completely. It's going to be a completely new experience. And there you're going to learn that things at school are totally different than how things work on a job. Because there are different rules, there are different patterns of behavior that we follow, and there are many, many things that you're going to learn throughout the way that even though schools give you the tools for you to face these kind of situations, there are things that schools cannot teach you, that only life can teach you, or that only interactions with other groups will teach you. And that is why socialization is important. It's the process in which you learn how to adapt, survive, and interact at any level of your life in different groups of people, okay? I don't interact the same, for example, with my coworkers as I will interact with my friends. I don't interact the same with my friends as I interact with my family. They are different rules and they are different social groups that have different patterns of behaviors established. Then, how do we know that socialization is important? Well, let me tell you that without socialization, children would not develop these skills necessary to live. They wouldn't be able to learn to talk, to walk, to eat, to use the bathroom, read, write, and many other things. Why? If you remember in the book, there are two examples of this. One is Annie, I guess it's pronounced, and the other one is Isabel. Two girls that they were isolated completely from social interaction with any other human being. What happened with these two girls was that when they were taken to a social environment in which people was normal, the problem was that they were having a lot of problems because they couldn't speak. They didn't understand the world that was surrounding them. And also they didn't show so many signs of intelligence. Why? Because imagine yourself in the following example. Imagine that you as a baby were abandoned on a jungle. Yes, I know I'm ripping off Tarzan, but I guess we have to do it sometimes. So imagine a situation like Tarzan, that he was abandoned in the jungle. Well, the Disney movie pictures it as something joyful and amazing, but in real life, and if you investigate, Tarzan is in fact based on a case of real life of a person who was left behind. I'm not sure if it was in a jungle, but he was raised by monkeys and everything, and he developed certain behaviors that were not proper of a human being, but more like to the ones of an animal. For example, he couldn't speak because I was telling you at the beginning, babies learn to speak by listening to their parents and to the people that surround them. But if you have never listened to another person talk, you are not going to be able to speak on your own. That's why socialization is important. That's how you learn to speak, because you listen to other people interact and talk. You listen to other people use a certain language. That's why you are a Spanish native speaker and not a speaker of any other language, because that is the first language that you see, that you interact with. But let's go back to this example. A person in a jungle, and imagine that he was raised by animals, right? He wouldn't behave like a normal person, because when you are a kid, you try to imitate everything that you see. I don't know if you remember, but every kid goes through this stage in which they want to copy everything that their parents or older brothers or sisters do. That they start, for example, if they have a certain job, they will start dressing like themselves and they will start playing, okay, I'm that today, and probably that is a doctor, and then I will start healing my toys and everything like that. But we started imitating behavior. Why? The reason why we do it is because we believe that if we imitate how people behave, then we know how to survive in a certain environment, a social environment. In this case, we learn many things like these ones. We learn to use the bathroom because our parents show us how to do it. We learn how to read and write because at school we are shown how to do it. And we learn how to eat and walk. Imagine that if you didn't learn how to walk like a regular human being. Going back to the example of Tarzan, Tarzan didn't walk like a human being. He walked like a monkey, like with the four extremities on the ground. But in this case, we know that human beings, they stand straight, they stand tall with just two legs, they walk in just two legs. They don't walk like the monkeys do. And we imitate, we see that, we imitate and we acquire it to survive. Therefore, socialization and all the socializing agents of children may change behavior and the ways to react to the environment. Remember, this is a process carried out by stages in which we learn the necessary skills to survive little by little. When you get to school, the first thing, when you get to kindergarten, you acquire activities that are necessary to survive. And probably this may sound funny, but one of the first skills that you learn to survive in kindergarten is to not be ashamed to go to the bathroom. That is one of the things that you learn over there. Why? Because at that age, you don't have control over your number one and number two necessities. But what happens is that you learn from the behaviors and what teachers tells you and what other people do, what is the right thing to do in that situation. As well, when you are a student and in older grades, right? You understand how to behave if you want to achieve certain things in life. You know what behaviors to follow. That is why sometimes the kind of people that you relate to, I'm talking about the groups of friends, they can shape your behavior. Because when you're socializing with that certain people, you will notice that they have certain behaviors or ways of thinking or traditions or things that they do that they all follow, all the people in the group follow. There is a saying that says that people look for people that are like themselves, okay? People look for people that are like themselves. That means that normally we look for people that share the same things in common with us. Same interests, same ideas, same opinions, same language, same religion in some cases, same, for example, favorite soccer team or something like that, same favorite band or musician, same favorite style of art or anything like that. We relate to that kind of people. And then you see how these people behave in a social environment as a group. Like for example, like, let's think of a social group like emos a long time ago, like so a couple of years ago. They behave in a certain way in which all of them supposedly were depressive. They cut their veins, they started listening to certain type of music, and they cut their hair in a certain way, and they dress in black. Okay, that's what the characteristics that they have. And what happened with them is that all of them follow that pattern. All of them follow that behavior because they learned that if they wanted to be part of the group, they have to behave like somebody that's part of the group. The same happens when, for example, you have peer pressure. You have a person that is a bad influence on you. Probably that person is going to have an impact in the way that you behave because you're going to acquire some of those behaviors of that people. Then we continue with the topic and we're going to change the slide. And how can we generalize from monkeys to humans? If you remember, in the book, there is an experiment made with monkeys, right? In which they were trying to analyze if they value more either food or social interaction. And I don't want to bore you with the details of the experiment. It's in the book and I know they have read it. But basically they discovered that some of the monkeys, they consider more important to have a hug, comprehension, and love from other of their species than having food. So this means the following. When we are human beings, I want you to imagine the following example. When you see a person that you know, either your friend or your classmate, cry, and you don't know why, one of the first instincts that we have is that first, we see that person crying. Second, we start wondering what might have that person have experienced in order for him or her to be crying. Then another pattern of behavior that we may have is that you try to hug the person to make them feel better. Or you will try to say some words that are going to be a positive message of that person. And you want to make them feel better with themselves, or you want to make them stop crying. Or sometimes another behavior that you adopt is to comprehend and to listen to them, to be there for them. But how do you know that that is the right thing to do? How do you know? Who taught you that? How did you know that when somebody cries, the first thing that you should do is to hug them, to ask them if they are okay, to give them a piece of advice, to be there with them? Nobody. Nobody taught you that. You saw that. Where do you see it? When you were a kid and you were playing soccer or you were learning to ride a bike, you fell down. You started crying. Mom and dad went to your rescue. They hugged you, they tricked you, and they were trying to kiss you to make you feel better. That's where you learn that behavior from. And that's why human babies denied close contacts usually have difficulty with emotional ties with others. Let me give you a little example. When I was at the university, I have a classmate, okay? And this classmate had a particularity that she was an orphan, okay? When she was born, she was abandoned in a monastery in Santa Ana. And what happened was that she was raised by nuns, right? Just by nuns. She didn't have a mom or a dad. Didn't have any other relatives that she knew. And she got onto till adulthood, and the problem was that she didn't know how to interact with other people. She was like a motionless person, if I may say, like a person that wasn't able to show so much emotions or many feelings, or didn't know how to interact in certain situations. If you were a person that were trying to hug her, she would feel weird, and she didn't want that kind of interaction. She wouldn't even look at you and smile or smile at a joke because she didn't understand how to behave in that situation. And that is an example of how, if you don't interact with society as a whole, you're going to have these patterns of behavior. That's why touching, stroking, and communicators appear to be essential for normal development according to the classic study by Lawrence in 1965. So they are essential for us to be human beings. These are skills that we all need to have. We all need to know how to do and to show kindness and affection to other people, because that is the way we interact in real life. If not, we are not able to survive. So we're going to stop right here just with socialization. So we still have 9 minutes. In this time, I will ask you to please activate your microphone. And I want to know if you have any question, any doubt. And I want to know if you want to add something else, another example as well. I will give you right now the time. I will stop recording right now so your voices are not heard. Okay, I will go as fast as I can because we have just a little bit left of time. So we have, how does the functionalism perspective explain socialization? If you remember, we had 3 perspectives that sociologists use to explain the patterns in society. The first one is functionalism, and if you remember, it deals with all the different parts of society working as a whole, like if you were in a human body. Functionalism stresses the way in which groups work together to create an unstable society. Schools and families, for example, socialize children by teaching them norms, values, beliefs, and if there were otherwise, they could not exist as a whole. It will be a fragmented and chaotic. I want you to imagine it like this. Imagine like school and family were separated, okay? If we teachers didn't have to talk to parents, if we didn't have to have meetings with parents, that would be a big issue, okay? Because from your parents, you learn how to behave, you learn values, you learn the certain types of beliefs. Probably the religion that you have is because it's the same religion that your parents have. Probably the way in which you behave, the way in which you speak, in which you interact with other people, it is not a copy, but it's similar to the way in which your parents behave. Probably you have heard that many people say that I have the same attitude that my dad has, or I have the same personality as my mom. Or you can say, I'm angry as my dad, I'm joyful as my mom. I have these characteristics and these characteristics. Therefore, you learn that you are quiet from then all of that. And how do teachers come into place? Well, since your parents are the first one to inject you with the values, teachers, we are there to reinforce those values. We are always telling you, do your homework, be responsible, be honest, be a kind person. You know what you did was not right, etc., etc. Why? Because we want to reinforce that. Therefore, that's how schools and families work together to make sure that the future generations, they become valuable adults, functional members of society that know how to behave in different situations. School not only prepares you to learn about mathematics, science, English, and all of those subjects, but they also prepare you for life. Why? Because if you remember in the book, it's mentioned the hidden curriculum. And what is the hidden curriculum? Are all the functions of a certain organization, movement, or whatever that are not stated on its real purpose, okay? School teaches you indirectly to be responsible because you know that you have, for example, homework assignment activities that you have to do. And you know that, for example, if you don't accomplish them or if you don't do them, there is a penalty for you for that. And that is a behavior that we are teaching you for life. Why? When you get to adulthood, you become an adult, you will have many tasks, many tasks. Even you would imagine that probably having a lot of homework right now is stressful. Wait till you get many responsibilities in a job. And there, you will learn that you learn at school that you should always be punctual with your activities and the things that you do, and you should work with excellency. If you learn that at school, you will take that into adulthood. And when you get to have your first job, you will apply it. That will be part of your life. That will be part of your parents because you learned that that was the behavior that you needed to survive at school. And now you're applying it in the real world. The same happens, for example, imagine that if in society we didn't have religion. Religion plays a really important role in society, even though many people say that no. But the reason why they play a key role is because they shape people on their values, beliefs, and ways of behaving. You will see that some people that profess certain religion, they will adopt certain parts that they say. For example, I don't drink because I learned in my religion that that is not right. That is not proper. That is improper behavior and that will have consequences. And then this shapes your life for many years to come. Why? Because that person is going to keep that belief in mind and therefore they are not going to do something that is not against their belief. And that's why society, according to the functionalism perspective, works together with all the different social groups. Families work together with schools, schools work together with families, families work together with church, churches work together with many other entities that we can mention. And they all have to work together and in harmony in order to not have a chaotic fragment of society. Let's move on. Let's see until where we can get. How does the concept of respect explain socialization? The conflict's perspective views socialization as a perpetuating of the status quo. The status quo is the status in which nothing changes at all. The same things are always the same things. Rich people is going to be rich people, and poor people are always going to be poor people. But when people are socialized to their family social class, for example, they help to preserve the current class system. Normally, people believe that because they were born on a certain level of, for example, of social status, many people may start believing, I don't say that this is a fact, I say that some people may think it this way, that they cannot change the reality, that if they are poor, they are always going to be poor. And if they are rich, they are always going to be rich. But life changes. Life has turnabouts and milestones, and one day you can be up and the next day you can be down or otherwise. But people learn to observe their social status before they have enough self-awareness to realize what's happening. That means that people accept the reality that they believe in until they discover the true hard reality. Not long time ago, I was talking to one of my students from other places that I used to work, and they had a lot of money. The student had a lot of money. Their parents were really amazing professionals, and they could afford for many expensive things. And he said that he had never seen poor people, okay? And now that he's at the university, and he took a year off, of education to discover the world and travel and to learn about himself. He found that many people are in extreme poverty. He traveled to many places, like, for example, Belize. He traveled to, including Africa, and he discovered that social reality was totally different for these people. Why? Because he always believed that because he had his commodities and things that were eased out to him, everybody had the same opportunities. Everybody could travel, everybody could access to good education. And then when he went to that trip, he discovered that that was not the truth. That was not completely true. People live in different ranges of society, and until they are self-aware of that, they can change. Okay, we're going to stop right here because we just have 1 minute or less than a minute. And I hope that this video has been helpful. Well, the conference have been helpful and you have understood. Before we go, I would like to know if there is any question, any doubt, so we can solve